Many businesses send their people there to advertise there at our home and other people's home. They bring flyers, pamphlets, door hangers, etc. Most of it ends up on the ground in the courtyard, in the parking lot, in the bushes, and so on. To all of that, they still said they would keep coming. What can we do about aggressive religious activities like that? We've tried to be nice, and some would even say we've acted Christian about it, in that we haven't gotten irate at them yet. Still they come there, knowing they aren't wanted. Then a few weeks later, the Mormons started going there. Oh, Jesus, Horatio, Christ. Decisions, decisions. Down the road, about a half-mile from that apartment complex, there is the Gethsemane Lutheran Church. It's positively huge. Anyway, it has a tall steeple with a cross and a crown on top. Below the cross and crown are, you guessed it, loudspeakers. 4 of them, facing north, south, east, and west. Every single day, every hour on the hour, they play the sounds of church bells through those loudspeakers and all throughout that neighborhood, and we heard the sounds of Christian songs like Onward Christian Soldiers. It permeates the air, winding around buildings and over fences, and it made its way into our apartment loud and clear. Now, I gave up religion for logic many years ago. It was a clear choice I made based on the fact that I could no longer believe in any gods. I didn't choose to be an atheist, but I definitely chose to give up on religion. We all make life choices, and when those choices work out for us, society ought to support us. Of course, most of American society seems to have been indoctrinated into thinking that religion is a good thing, and that leaving religion is a bad thing. I'm here to tell you, it's the exact opposite. So they keep trying to get at me and you and every other apostate. I called the noisy church down the road, and they were usually not there to answer their own phone. I found out that most of the time when the bells are going, no one is at church itself. They've got it set on a timer. Technology bastardized and abused for the purposes of promoting religion, which is an anti-science pursuit. Then we've got the Austin Restoration Ministries, which is more of a religious drug rehab than a church. They claim to take crack-addicted people off the streets and put them into homes with other formerly homeless and crack-addicted people and get them off the drugs. Mostly a lot of ex-cons. Sounds great, doesn't it? What they fail to understand is that religion is just another drug addiction. It can be equally dangerous, too. Religion as a drug can cause hallucinations, depending on how you take it. Like Alcoholics Anonymous, this group simply replaces one drug with another, and pretends to have made some great success in just that alone. Unlike Alcoholics Anonymous, however, the Austin Restoration Ministries actually sends their people back out onto those very same streets to solicit donations from drivers waiting at red lights. A half-mile from my home, there were people standing in the lanes of the intersection at Highway 183 and I-35 and other busy intersections throughout Austin. When the light is red, they walk out into the lanes and begin talking to as many drivers as they can. If you don't feel like talking, they might just stand there next to your window until you talk to them. It can make a driver feel quite uncomfortable. More importantly, it's highly unsafe, and therefore it's also illegal. I called the Austin Police Department and found out that while it's legal for them to stand on the curb to solicit donations, it is illegal for them to walk out into the lanes. If they're not just crossing the street in the crosswalk like they should, them being in those lanes is a violation of the law. It's obviously unsafe, too. Not just for the solicitors, but also the people in their cars. Suppose someone swerves to avoid hitting one of these people in the lanes, and that car hits another car, and so on. It's dangerous. I drive too and sit at that red light often. They always come up to my window. When they do, they try to give out a little black and white flyer that has information about their ministry. Then they ask for a donation. I always say, hey, instead of me giving you $1, I'd like to give you something that's worth a whole lot more. Information about an alternative lifestyle. One where people rely on themselves and make good things happen themselves. Here's a free copy of an atheist newsletter or magazine I would give them. I think you'll find that by reading this whole newsletter, that you'll see that humans are good, friendly, and benevolent people. No religion's needed. This usually throws them off guard a bit, and I make sure to talk non-stop until the light turns green. Then we only have time to say goodbye. They always sneak in the standard jab, "God bless you, sir." No thanks, I don't use that particular drug. Free speech is good when it's educational. I called the phone number on the little flyer they gave me, and I asked whether they knew what they were doing was illegal. The preacher on the phone indicated that they all knew that it was illegal, but that they had no other way of getting funding. I quickly reminded him of some of the legitimate forms of fundraising that religious and secular groups do for little or no money up front, and without having to do anything dangerous or illegal. He proceeded to preach at me, as if the real problem was my soul. The more I tried to keep on the subject of the call, the more he went on, without a care in the world, other than getting me into his grip. Some of their people in the street appeared to be teenagers, including what looked like young teenage girls who probably never had a significant problem in their life. They didn't look like they came in off the streets, kicking some drug habit, that's for sure. They looked like they were getting paid to solicit for a church they didn't belong to, and that's a little scary. Through some research, I found out that they don't have a church building, and that's one of the new kinds of aggressive Christian groups I'm finding these days. Why buy or rent a building when you have a perfectly good working living room of your own? All of the church's needs can be met through work in one person's home, and sometimes it doesn't even require that much. Sometimes they give out water bottles to drivers for free with a donation. Here in Texas, water bottle sales at street corners booms for a few months a year in the summer. Summer lasts around 6 months, here in central Texas, of course. Here's another one. The Sold Out for Christ Outreach Ministry, Archie Lee Kelly, pastor. I used to work at a hip-hop dance club in Pflugerville, Texas. I believe it's the only hip-hop dance club in that small town, which makes it a pretty popular place. Every Friday night, they go to capacity and beyond, with 500 and more people, all dancing in unison. Out in the parking lot is where I used to work. I was a valet. Amazing things happened in the parking lot of that big dance club in that town. One of those things was religious. On Friday nights, the busiest night of the week, anywhere between 3 and 20 members of the Sold Out for Christ Outreach Ministry would come to that club's parking lot to try to talk our patrons out of going into the club. They told our patrons that our club is a den of sin and debauchery. They even said that anyone who steps foot in that club will burn in hell when they die. Being a hip-hop club, most of the patrons are black. I would say around 10% of the patrons are other than black, but it is essentially a black club. You might say it's for black people and people who want to be black. You might also say that it's ironic that most of the parking lot evangelists were white, and that they didn't at all look like they enjoyed hip-hop music. Oh, there were some black parking lot evangelists, and they occasionally recognized their friends among the patrons to the club. They shook hands, and they laughed, and they gave a manly hug, and then they went their separate ways. The evangelist went back to bothering people in the parking lot, and the patrons proceeded to damn themselves in our club. They remained friends the whole time, and everything seemed to work out in reality. The evangelists from Sold Out for Christ Outreach Ministry are aggressive and skillful, and obviously very experienced at public evangelism. Around 10 p.m., they staked out a good position in that parking lot, far away from the entrance to the club. Then they broke off into groups, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they tried to talk to every single patron who parked and started walking towards the door. You could always tell when you're looking at one of the parking lot evangelists, and not one of our patrons, when you saw the leather-bound Bible in the hands of the evangelists. They actually brought Bibles to the parking lot where they would bother people. They sometimes would open it up and read intently as a group right there in the parking lot. Usually they just carry it and look good holding it, right? Most of our patrons came to the entrance after having been preached at, saying things like, "I'm going to church the day after tomorrow. I don't need any parking lot preacher to tell me how to save my soul. Jesus already knows me well, and we're like that." What kind of fool doesn't know that most black people are in church on Sundays anyway? Just because we like to dance and drink and socialize doesn't mean we're disobeying God. They need to just step off with that noise, our patrons would say. Well, I couldn't agree more. We heard that a lot because we worked at the front entrance of the club. We got everyone who those evangelists got through with, and they got to almost everyone who went into the club when they were there. They were very systematic about it. Now you might be asking yourself, isn't that parking lot private property? The club manager should be able to evict them right away. That kind of preaching is usually only allowed on the sidewalk or street corner. The manager of the club decided to have a little talk with the parking lot preachers on one of the first nights they were there. Well, you know those good Christians refused to leave. and they challenged our manager to call the police. So we did, and the sheriff came out. The sheriff said that our parking lot was in a very peculiar location. It doesn't sit inside the city limits of any city, not even Pflugerville. It's on county land, not city land, so the parking lot wasn't private property, still isn't, but rather it's public property. It's as big as a football field, and apparently anyone can use it anytime to hold demonstrations or preaching sessions, no matter who complains. This is a huge site of potential advertising, so that's one Christian group that took advantage of the situation. Never mind that most black Americans are devout Christians of one denomination or another. I was the valet, which meant that I saw all the Jesus fish plaques and the rosaries on the rear view mirrors and the Bibles in the back seat windowsills. I can tell you that a hip-hop club does its best business of all week on Friday nights because most of that club's patrons have to get up early on Sunday mornings for church. If they partied half as much on Saturday as they do on Friday, they would never be ready for church on Sunday. And some of them told me that. It all makes perfect sense. These Christian parking lot preachers are not satisfied with having a majority of Americans calling itself Christians. They're not even satisfied with having a church on just about every other corner and block in America. They'll pester their own kind all day and night if they can into being a better Christian and living more in line with what they want. Notice that it's not a God who preaches at us. It's only people, and those people can't even produce that God either. No one can. The biggest, most obnoxious common denominator between all God-based religions is the obvious and glaring fact that they all lack gods anywhere. If they had a real God, they would produce it. They don't even try to produce their God because they know ahead of time that an effort like that would be futile from the start. And they tell me that too. Now I'm on YouTube and I'm trying to expose some of the most aggressive religious groups in Texas. I've found a lot to talk about and videotape. I put out a video series called When Christians Misbehave, and it's just what it sounds like. youtube.com/AAJoeyJoe. I'm very proud of the activism I've taken part in and helped out with. We atheists love Saturdays. On Saturday, November 2nd, 2002, I and other godless Americans marched and rallied for our civil rights and state church separation at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. It was a wonderful day for godless Americans. On Saturday, September 8, 2007, I and other Texas atheists executed the 2007 Texas State Church Separation Rally here in Austin, Texas. We held it on the steps of the Texas State Capitol building at 11th Street and Congress Avenue. It was a glorious day for Texas atheists. In the last couple of years, there has been a surge of interest in America about atheism. Several books about atheism and the problems with religion have become bestsellers lately. The media and Hollywood are slowly opening up to us. We're now considered a new and previously untapped market. I hope this book has helped you in some way. We atheists owe it to ourselves and future generations of humans to refuse, resist, and fight religion here and now. We atheists owe it to our past heroes like Robert G. Ingersoll and Susan B. Anthony and Thomas A. Edison to strive to make humanity safe from the myriad of unnecessary and harmful religions. The job is here and the time is now. I love classic atheist sayings. I thank whoever first said these things. Let every religion die out due to lack of interest. Let every slave of religion be liberated in mind and body. May the last priest be crushed to death by the last falling stone from the last crumbling church. And may humanity never stunt itself with the menace of religion ever again. Thank you for reading and listening. I'm Joe Zamecki.